Okay, we're coming to the last part of this Hasidic discourse. Hasidic discourse is a mimer. That's the word for it, the official word for it, a mimer. Mimer just, means discourse. That's what it means. And we're coming to the end of it. We have to decide what to do next, but let us just discuss where we are up until now. We said that in the beginning of creation, the divine presence was primarily manifested down below in this world, even though there were worlds that were much, much higher than this world, like the world of Atzilut and so on. And there were three spiritual worlds that transcend this world, and the highest one is called Atzilut. So even though Atzilut is a vastly, incomparably higher world, the paradox of godliness is that the highest levels of godliness can be revealed in the lowest levels of physicality. And that was in fact the point of creation. Unfortunately, through the sins of 7 generations, starting with Adam, Cain, Enosh, the generation of the flood, which culminated with Noah, the Tower of Babel, the generation of the Tower of Babel, the generation of Sodom and Amorah, and then the Egyptians in the time of Abraham. They all, because of their actions, they pushed the divine presence away from away from its manifestation in this world. And it became more and more concealed. Doesn't mean it's not here, it just became more and more concealed. Then through the actions of 7 generations, starting with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Levi is the one of the sons of Jacob, and then his son Kohath, and then Amram, and then Moshe, they brought the Shekhinah back down to earth until the Shekhinah was brought back down at the time of the building of the temple. At the time of the giving of the Torah. Subsequent to the giving of the Torah, we were told to build a temple. And that building of the temple was once again the place, so to speak, for the Shekhinah to dwell. That is what the verse that starts off with, I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride, is talking about the return of the divine presence to the earth, where it was manifested in the Holy of Holies in the temple. Okay, that was more or less the content of the first chapter. Then it went on to explain what one of the services in the temple was the idea of the sacrifices. Now, anything that there was in temple times, although we don't have the temple anymore because of the destruction of the temple about 2,000 years ago. Because of that destruction, that's the second temple, the destruction of the second temple. The first temple was even before that, 2,500 years ago. In any event, the destruction of the temple does not change the fact that we have certain types of service that we are obligated in. One of those services was bringing an offering, a sacrifice. And even though in those days it was an animal sacrifice, and the purpose of the animal sacrifices was to lift up, to elevate the sparks of holiness that had fallen into the lower realms of creation, and by offering a sacrifice that causes the spark to be released and to be returned to its original source, the vessels of the world of Tohu. But in any event, we don't have that now, and the way we do that now is by a person in an act of self-sacrifice. In other words, offering up one's own animal soul. In other words, not, God forbid, actually doing yourself any harm, but elevating oneself to the level of human, because man includes obviously men and women, are made in the divine image, and elevating one's animal nature, one's base animal nature, to the level of man, to the level of humanity, is the idea of the sacrifice in our times. He then went on to explain that the tabernacle was originally built with acacia wood beams. The beams, the walls of the structure, which were covered with animal skins, but the walls of the structure were made from acacia wood, and the word for acacia in Hebrew is called atzei shittim. Shittim means acacia wood. So these wooden beams, what do they teach us? They teach us that there is a concept of shtus, of foolishness, which is in the world and the foolishness has to be elevated. Generally, our foolishness is expressed in following the habits and the mores and patterns of thinking of society, without thinking well about what it is that we're exactly doing. Everyone does the same thing. Is it necessarily good for us? Not necessarily. Is it necessarily the right thing? Not necessarily. So we start to think in certain ways and act in certain ways and do certain things that it's just a fashion. It's the way people do things, and therefore we sort of fall into the same patterns. He says that's shtus of foolishness. What we have to get to is shtus the kedusha, the shtus, the foolishness of holiness. In other words, just like the prophets who were called fools, they were called meshugoyim, crazy people, because they did things in ways that people didn't understand. It wasn't the regular way of doing things. They didn't have 9-to-5 jobs as prophets. They were completely dedicated to the Almighty, dedicated to God, and the way they acted was always in a transcendent type of way. And that's what we have to do to transform the animal nature of ourselves into human. We have to transcend the animal way of doing things. What is an animal? An animal, generally, most animals anyway, walk around on all fours, and their head and their hearts and their stomachs are all on the same level. And that's how they behave. Their head is there for the sake of their stomach. If you've ever watched a cow grazing, you'll see that they're just constantly grazing, and you'll never see a cow sitting down and starting to wonder about, why is it that I'm here? What am I doing in this world? What is my purpose? What is what's going to be with me? Where am I going to land up? And so on and so forth. We don't see that very much at all. Generally with cows, and so too with many human beings. It seems to be, and this is not a criticism, it's just an observation, many human beings just kind of live for the next meal, live for the next party, live for the next experience, without sort of directing it towards any particular goal, without having any particular system in place. That's called the ruach shtus, the ruach of the spirit of folly. But the spirit of folly only covers, it manages to cover up the emotional aspects of the godly soul, but it does not cover up the intellectual aspects of the godly soul. And therefore, we try and use our intellect in order to raise ourselves up, and in order to direct our emotions so that they won't be subject to the foolishness of the world. Okay, so let's just, I'm sharing the screen, and you should be able to see over here highlighted such unreasonable habits. Yeah, I'm assuming that everyone, let me just make sure that I have the chat so I can see any questions that come up. The chat seems to have disappeared somewhere. Oh, here it is, 1 second. There we are, okay. All right, I have the chat. If you have any questions, just write them in the chat, okay? All right, good. So, as I was saying, the spirit of folly is such that we do unreasonable things. Such unreasonable habits ought to be transformed through one's own endeavors, not through the endeavors of someone else lifting you up. It's possible for others to lift you up, but it's much better for you to lift yourself up. Okay, Such unreasonable habits ought to be transformed through one's own endeavors. Instead of remaining below reason, they should be elevated to above reason. Again, above reason means that one lives a reasoned life, a life which is planned out, but then one transcends that intellectual aspect as well, because intellect is also a limitation. It's not the essence of the soul. It's only one of the powers of the soul, three of the powers of the soul, actually. Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, the intellect, and we want to transcend that to get to Keter, self-transcendence. In any event, he gives an example. Business commitments, for example, pressing as they may be, do not generally overrule the times that convention prescribes for eating and sleeping. In other words, everyone who's been in business, today things might be a little bit different, but certainly in formal situations, everybody has a lunchtime, right? And the lunchtime is kind of sacrosanct. And when you come home, you have dinner, and you have dinner at 7 o'clock or 7:30, or whatever time you normally eat dinner. And there's conventions which everybody sticks to, hopefully for eating and for sleeping and so on and so forth. Now, I say hopefully because we don't want the person to have a chaotic life. It's important to have order in one's life. One can't get much done without having an orderly life. But at certain times of the year, certain times in one's life, one has to transcend the need for order and go beyond one's normal track. Tanya brings an example of this from the Gemara. Tanya is a Hasidic work, the fundamental Hasidic work of Chabad Hasidus. So he brings an example of this from the Gemara, where the Gemara says, the Talmud says that donkey drivers, or wagon drivers would charge one, let's say, I don't know, $10 for a parasang. A parasang is a certain distance, let's say 2 miles. I charge $10 for 2 miles, let's say, whatever it was. I don't know exactly the amount, but $10 for a 2 mile thing. But if you had to go 2.5 miles or 3 miles, that would charge you 20. It should be double, you would imagine, right? And no, because the horses or the animals that pull a wagon are used to going 1 mile only, and therefore, 1 mile to the town. So they're from the railway station. So if you have to go 2 miles, that's out of the ordinary, and therefore you pay double. Same thing with us. Generally, we run along a certain track, and we stick to that track no matter what, right? And if we have to get off the track for some particular reason, it seems to demand a tremendous amount of effort. Okay, but a man, and when we say a man, we mean a human being, a man or a woman who feels accountable to his soul should ask himself, is there any wisdom in such conduct? Are we simply animals like pulling a plow every day? That every day you pull a wagon from the train station to the town, from the town to the train station, and that's all you ever do, right? Are you like a railway car? Is that all you are in life, or are you something more than that? Is it something that you can do to get beyond the humdrum sort of existence that we all kind of get used to? For who is the man who knows when his time will come? Who's the person that knows when his time will come? Don't forget, as I think I mentioned at the beginning, this discourse was written for the day that he passed away. It was written for the day that he passed away. He put the date on it, which was a few days into the future, and actually a few weeks into the future. And this is what he said: for who is the person who knows when his time will come? And generally, tzaddikim do know when their time will come. They are aware of it. In fact, the author of this particular discourse, his grandfather was the 4th Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he wrote on a piece of paper in a book that he was learning, and he put a piece of paper into the book at the place that he was learning, and on the piece of paper it said the exact date, the exact hour, the minute, and the second that he would pass away, and so it was. In any event, that's for great holy people. They don't know generally. A person doesn't know when his time will come, and therefore don't leave it till later. Don't put it off till tomorrow, right? You know the expression, don't put off till tomorrow what you can put off till the next day. Well, he's saying the opposite here. Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, right? Okay. So, in the words of Midrash Rabbah, the Midrash Rabbah is a Midrash, it's a rabbinical teaching. In the words of Midrash Rabbah, it is not given to man to tell the angel of death, wait until I've settled my accounts and arranged my household. Hang on a second, you're going to tell the angel of death, can you just wait a few minutes? I'm busy right now. Whatever, okay? How then can a man expend his soul's energy, a person expend their soul's energy on goals that have no substance, and utterly forget the purpose for which his soul descended to this world? How can you forget the purpose of your soul? And generally we do that. We're so busy involved with the humdrum of daily existence that we tend to forget why we're really here. We get involved in the politics and in the economics and in the all the opinions and the disasters of the day. And of course, the media doesn't help in this regard. It gets you involved in the issues of the day. And we tend to forget like what it is that we're really here for. A person is here to bring light into this world. Okay. River says, this reminds me of the man whose life was protected by Shimon. I don't remember the whole story, but I know it does deal with the angel of death, putting him off for the purpose of learning, or some had a similar. Yes, there are actually several stories among the sages in this regard. That is correct. Okay, so let's continue. A person can forget the purpose for which his soul descended to this world. Let him realize that this possibility comes only from the spirit of folly. Getting involved completely, head and foot, from top to toe in this world is the spirit of folly. You have to set aside time every day in order to meditate, in order to think, what is it that I'm doing? What did I achieve? And what do I still have to achieve? And how am I going to get there? It's not simply enough to have a goal. You also have to have a system of getting there. It's not enough for the goals can be very wonderful and very lofty, and without them, we can be completely lost. We have to have them. You have to know where you're going, but you also have to know how to get there. Important. With that realization, a person will stand fast and fix times for the study of Torah and for meditating and so on. And then God says, I will dwell within each one of them. Divine light will be revealed within the person's soul and illuminate it. This is the meaning of the above quoted statement of the Zohar. The above quoted statement of the Zohar is when he repeats it now. When the Sitra Achra is subdued, when the other side is subdued, in other words, the side of that's the non-holy side of things, simply called the other side. That's how the Zohar refers to it. It's called the other side. There's one side, there's the other side of the coin, right? It's not something that that is unfamiliar to us. It's just the other side of everything, other side of the coin. When the Sitra Achra is subdued, when the other side is subdued. Sorry, let's switch that off here. Call from. Okay. When the other side is subdued, i.e., when the foolishness of the animal soul and the excitement of worldly pleasure have been transformed into holiness, the excitement, the foolishness of the animal soul and the excitement of worldly pleasure. We all know how exciting worldly pleasures can be. And it's not that we're not demanding, the Torah does not demand that people be ascetic, and become, lock themselves away from the world. Yes, some people that's good for, but it's more important to do your normal things in a holy way than to push them off completely. That is the correct approach. The approach is to do the normal things you have to do, but to make them holy. Okay, and how do you do that? Through the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvot, through fulfilling your obligations, your divine obligations. In other words, the way that the Almighty, the way that God wishes us to be, by fulfilling the commandments, whether it's the 7 Noahide laws or whether it's the commandments of the Torah. This is what we're obligated to do. In other words, live a godly life. And then the glory of God rises thereby and is diffused throughout all the worlds. The glory of God is diffused throughout all of the worlds. It rises, in other words, it comes to a higher level through us doing what we are obligated to do and what we ultimately, the godly soul actually wants to do. And the light that diffuses throughout all the worlds is the transcendent light of Sovev Kol Almin, the transcendent light that transcends all of the worlds equally, and that will shine forth in lustrous revelation in the future. For some people, it is visible already. In other words, when I say visible, I don't mean in terms of light, but it's visible to the soul, right? It's tangible to the soul already. And for the majority of people, it is not. But we do get experiences of it from time to time when miraculous things happen or unexpected good things happen. So, summary, the above chapter explains that just as there's folly that derives from the unholy side of the universe, so too there's a folly of holiness, a deviation above the bounds of reason. An example of this is the fact that prophecy requires that one first divest himself of the awareness of his own mind and emotions, i.e., that one transcends one's own mind and emotion, and then one can start to become a conduit for the divine will, which is what a prophet is. The fact that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, is made of acacia wood, Atzishittim it's called, is a reminder of how in one's daily life one can transform the folly of evil, shtus, foolishness, into the folly of holiness. And that is the completion of this particular discourse. And actually, that's the first part of the discourse. It actually comes in several parts, but we finished the first discourse. Okay. Some questions. Seems like the boggan run that well worn is hard to climb out of. It's easy to fall back to that well run. Yes, it's true. That is true. And it demands discipline. Yeah, self-discipline, but discipline. How do you know if you're doing the mitzvot in a holy way? We make a lot of mistakes. Yes, everybody makes mistakes, and we do make mistakes, but there are ways of checking yourself. One of the ways you check yourself is every night before you go to sleep, you do a system check. It's called, we call it Kriyat Shema Lamita, yeah, reading the Shema prayer at night, which is part of the Shema prayer at night, is a self-assessment. Where did I plan to get to today, and how far did I get? What, but in over that, of course, one has to have plans. But making a mistake is not the issue. Recognizing that you made a mistake is the issue. That's what's the important thing. I was seeing something from happened to actually be a big investor, famous trader actually, and he said there's two kinds of people. There's people who don't know anything when it comes to trading, and then there's people who don't know that they don't know anything. Okay, so the same thing could be said, I suppose, in the spiritual sense. We realize that we don't really know very much. That's for sure. But let's not be those who don't even know that they don't know. Let's know that we don't know. Okay? Is this how we lowly folks could assist with bringing divine presence into the lower world? Yes. And let's not call ourselves lowly folks. Everyone is sort of a brick in the building, if you know what I mean. And one brick is not really more important than the other. Yes, it's true that some bricks are closer to the Holy of Holies, or part of the Holy of Holies, and some are in the courtyard. But if the courtyard is missing a brick, the whole temple suffers as a result. It's not a complete building. And the truth is that we all have all aspects of the temple within us. We have the soul within the Holy of Holies, and then we have the holy area, and then we have the courtyard, and so on and so forth. We all have all of these aspects. It depends on what we choose to emphasize to a certain extent. But the service of even the simplest person, if it's done sincerely and with love and with and the proper awe and so on, has the ability to give tremendous joy to our Creator. That's just the way it is. you know, you see a little child say their first word. I mean, come on, you know, you have children that are already 14, 15, and they can speak perfectly, and that in fact, they do speak much more than they need to. Teenagers, you know, and we don't make a big deal of them. Maybe we make a big deal they're speaking too much, but we certainly don't make a big deal about saying one word. But when a little child says their first word, it's a big deal because it's a little child. So even if a person is, so to speak, one of the lowly folk, that doesn't detract one iota from the fact that God gets great pleasure from the lowly folk doing what they are supposed to do, and doing it with sincerity and with joy and so on and so forth. Okay, let's continue. How do we do that? We have joy even through all our mistakes. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, fine. Yes, I know that I don't know, right? We all know that we know well. We all know that we shouldn't think that we know everything, that's for sure. How can one find find what is their unique purpose? That is a very important question, Leah. And there are various profiles that can be figured out for a person for them to figure out what their. It's best done by, you know, consultation, speaking over with someone who's aware of these things, who can understand and delve into it. And I don't mean a psychologist, I mean a spiritual guide of one sort or another. I do that. There's many other people that do as well. But generally, it has to do with the particular talents with which you are endowed. Particular talents with which you are endowed. Now, a person might feel that they don't really have any talents at all, but this is not true. This is not the case. I'll just give you an example of something that just happened very, very recently. There was a young man who lived in Philadelphia, and there were riots in the town and so on and so forth, and just around the area that he lived, and it was, you know, there was broken glass, there was burning buildings, and it was terrible, like just total devastation. And he decided that he's going to do what he has to do. He was a young guy. He went and got a broom and a garbage can and a dustpan, and he started cleaning up the glass and started cleaning up the muck and the junk and so on and so forth. Someone saw him doing this and asked him why he's doing it, like who told him to. Say, no, I just felt that it was, you know, an important thing to do. So that person said that they will make sure that he was actually a high school student who just graduated, just finished high school. And that person said that they would make sure that they would help him apply to the college of his choice, and that they would take care of a scholarship. They would pay for his education. So, see, just little things. It's not anything very impressive about sweeping a floor, but believe me, sweeping a floor can earn you a position at a good university with all tuition paid. In any event, we do mention this in Harlem on the second thought. You are correct. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. So your unique purpose has to do with your talents, the God-given talents that everybody has. The God-given talents could be something that you don't even realize you have, and how it could be used in fulfilling your ultimate purpose in the world. But it can't. Okay. Seems like a moment-by-moment reminder is needed throughout the day, since the animal folly is used to leading moment by moment. Yes, it's true. It's not easy to break that cycle. That's correct. It's not easy to break the cycle. It's just an example of a reminder. It is an example of a reminder. Tzitzis are the strings that Orthodox Jews wear on their clothing. Tzitzis are called Tanis cotton tzitzis, the strings that you're supposed to look at them and remind yourself. But there's many other ways of making reminders. There are people who stop doing what it is that they do, and of course, if they can. I mean, a person's a doctor in the middle of an operation. I don't think you can do this, but they stop every hour or every 2 hours or every 3 hours or whatever it is for a few minutes just to think, where am I at? What am I doing? Am I moving towards my goal for the day, or am I not? Now, there are people that are very disciplined in this. They have goals for the day, they have goals for the week, they have goals for the month, they have goals for the year. And usually it starts off at the beginning of the year. You plan out the whole year. Obviously things could change, but that's fine. They're expected to change. But one thing is for sure, that if you don't plan anything, you're going to be subject to happenstance. If you do plan, it may be that you'll have to change your plans, but that's okay, right? At least you have plans. So there are people that figure things out at the beginning of the year, and then they move to monthly, break that down into monthly chunks, and then monthly into weekly, and then weekly into daily. So what am I going to do today? Now, that might seem a little bit too rigid, and for most people probably it is a little bit rigid, so it doesn't have to be every year, take it on such a big, big scale, but certainly every month. And certainly every week. A person can start off beginning of the week. Sunday, you have time to think about, how am I going to plan out my week? What's my week going to be? If you do it in business, for sure, one could do it in one's personal life as well. Yeah. Okay. Elisha says, when I struggle with this in simple terms, I found that if I just worked on my midos means the person's emotional qualities, his qualities of character, and try to draw close to Hashem, things worked out. Yeah, that too is a goal. Perfect. Hour by hour it is until it's starting to work. Yeah, that's certainly a way to do it. Don't be afraid to adjust if you have to. Obviously, sometimes God can give you a rest. Can you? Sometimes Hashem, can you give it a rest? Not the only one that needs me. Oh yeah, God says to you, right? Yeah. Hey, leave me alone for a while. I'm busy. Right? Yeah, it can happen. We shouldn't be a nag. I mean, we don't have to be nags. We don't have to every little thing. Help me out over here. Help me out over here. Help me tie my shoelace. You could do your shoelace by yourself. You know how to do it. You don't need help. You don't need help with washing the dishes. You don't need help with putting in a screw or whatever it is. There's things that you can do by yourself. Yes, it's true. We ask for guidance in a general sense, and we hope we'll get guidance in a general sense. But don't ask, should I tie my right shoe first or my left shoe first? That's that you could simply look in the code of Jewish law and you can find out what to do. Okay. All right, we're good. Starting the Moses Shabbat 40 days until Elul. Until Elul. Okay, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Elisha. 15th of Av. I see. A bit more than 40 days, I think. All right. In any event, there is a related subject, and I am going to pull up the saying over here. Just something that some of us read as a book, which was actually compiled by the Lubavitcher Rebbe from the teachings of his father-in-law, who was the previous Rebbe. And it just has a little section every day of thoughts. It's called Hayom Yom. Today's the day, right? Hayom Yom. Today is the day, and it gives you something to think about. I always like to do it first thing in the day. Start off with Tanya and then Hayom Yom. But it gives me something to think about for the rest of the day. So this is a very important one. It's from yesterday. And so let's read it. Care in a person's heart, yashchena. Cares, worries in your heart, yashchena. Now, yashchena could actually mean, he's going to give 3 meanings for it shortly. But yashchena can mean it wears the heart down. Yeah, the worries in your heart wear it down, right? But that's just a statement of fact. Like, so what? We know that. You know that worries worries wear you out. What are you going to do about it is the question, or what can be done about it is the question, right? In Hayom Yom, yeah, Hayom Yom. It's on Hayom Yom for the 25th of Sivan. Yeah, that's yesterday. Okay, so yeah, so he says like this: care in a person's heart, Yashchena, will wear it down. Our sages offer two interpretations of that last word, Yashchena. They just slightly reinterpret the word in honor and in not say Yashchena will wear it down, but Yesichena. Yesichena means to remove it. Lahasiach is to remove it, remove the care from the mind. In other words, don't brood on it, don't think about it. The more you think about it, the more power you give it, the more energy you give it. Just move it aside. There's a time, set aside a time when you're going to think about that thing that's worrying you, and you're going to take care of it. But it doesn't have to occupy your whole day. You know, some people get like, they start to obsess with this particular worry or that particular worry or whatever it is. And the more they obsess, the more they become obsessed, and they wear themselves out. So the best thing to do is you have something that needs to be taken care of. Set aside a time, but not now. Unless now's a good time for it. But you set aside the appropriate time, and then don't worry about it the rest of the time. Okay? So one interpretation is remove the care from the mind. Remove it from you. Yisichena. The other is discuss it with others. Yisichena can also mean to not lahasiach, to remove, but to discuss. One is spelled with a sin, one is spelled with a shin. Sorry, one is spelled with a samach, one is spelled with a sin. Right? If anyone's interested, let's just. Okay, well, I'll have to stop the share. All right, 1 second. Let me just show you here. Where are we? We didn't finish it yet. We're going to get back to it in a second. For those of you who are interested, this would be the one way of writing it. Yes, as you'll notice, I'm writing with a mouse, but some very kind person, I'm not going to say his name because he has to remain anonymous, has sent me a pen pad, so I will be able to write normally in the near future when it arrives, God willing. Okay, so the one way of doing it, that's called to remove, right? To remove something. Worries in your heart, remove the worries, and set it aside for another time. The other way of explaining it is Yesichena, which will be written like that, which means speak it out. Speak it out to someone who is close to you. Speak it out to a friend. Speak your troubles and get guidance from others if possible. If not guidance, at least speaking it out gives you clarity. Okay? Good. The Tzemach Tzedek was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek said as follows. He expressed it differently. He said the comment of with others, don't think about it as with others. Others only in the bodily sense. Those are people outside of yourself, yes, somebody else, but people who are not other towards you. In other words, they're your friends, they're your spiritual guide, your family, someone who you can open your heart to, right? They empathize with you. All right. Yeah, 95% of the things that we worry about never come to be. Probably more than 95%, right? Never come to be. So yes, that is indeed awesome. Thanks to Anonymous, 100%. Very kindly person. I have to tell you. May Anonymous be blessed many times. Yes, indeed, he is. Okay, folks. So that's something to think about. Worries in your heart. Don't let it wear you down. Set it aside for a time when you can deal with the issue. If there is an issue, if there is no issue, then just set it aside and don't deal with it ever. Just completely push it out of your mind. And if it's something that you don't know how to deal with, then speak it over to others, to somebody else, somebody who's close to you, somebody who will understand you, someone who can empathize, someone who's a professional listener, so to speak. I heard recently a statement that somebody said that I heard from the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and someone came into for a private audience, and the person said, Rabbi, I came to hear you. So I says, no, you came to tell me what you want me to hear, and that's correct. I'm listening, right? I want to listen. I'm here to listen. Speak it out. Okay. Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. That is correct. All right. That's about it for today. Okay, everybody, all the best. I'm hoping there'll be a class next week. I'm planning on one. I don't see why there won't be one, but we will be in touch next Wednesday or Thursday. I'll let you know what's happening. If there's nothing happening, if there's not going to be a class, I hope to let you know on Wednesday. Otherwise, expect one to be on Thursday, okay? All righty. Looking forward to the next subject. Yeah, we have to think about, you know what, why don't you all make some suggestions as to what it is that you would like to study. I can't promise you that I'm going to, obviously I can't follow every suggestion, and I'll probably only follow those that I think would be appropriate for the group or that I like to look into. But I'm very open to suggestions. If there's anything particular anyone wants to do, I'd be very happy to consider. Otherwise, I'll choose something myself. All right? Okay, more Zohar. All right. Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is a very, very, very abstruse, very difficult subject. I'm writing commentary on it, but it's taking a very long time and it's very hard. It's very, very abstruse. It's very hidden. All right, good. The question you asked earlier. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Yal. I'm looking through. Do we mention this on Hallel? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Yael, but if you could, I'm not sure what you're referring to over here. That's something else altogether that you're referring to, but let me know. So you can always drop me an email, and yeah, let me know during during the week by email. Yeah. All right. All the best then. See you.